Yeah, so we came here today at Flowerland.
Yeah, Flowerland's a great little cafe slash nursery place where we can get a cup of joe and watch or have a lot of things to paint in the nursery. So that's what you're going to paint. We met there early on in the morning, and it happened to be an overcast day, which worked out well for painting this class. So.
It's perfect, even though we got into direct light lecture in the last week lecture. We want to go back to diffused lighting first in this first demo because it focuses you on color, since this is about color.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect place because there are so many colors, so many plants, different kinds of flowers. It's all over the place. You really get the sense that, oh, it's very colorful. How do you bring that to harmony? It'll be fun to kind of explore.
Yeah. So it's great. I mean, if you look at the photo, the tricky thing I think about looking at the photo is really getting a sense for how much color was actually here in this scene that you're painting. I mean, some of the stuff is like, obvious, like the orange chair and that kind of high key table. But if you look all around, I remember looking all around where you were painting. These plants are all different colors. There's little flowers. It's a lot to look at. It's as a painter, I think looking at this, it's a very daunting task to look at all this stuff. What's great is right away here, you're really starting to set up relationships.
Yeah, again, for me, I picked the focal point right away, which was my orange chair here and the table. But everything else just became a pattern. And that's how I saw it. If I squint at it, the orange chair really came out. And I know from my experience that, oftentimes when we paint green, we actually literally use green, and then it becomes too garish, and it's not a natural green. And that's something I'm always conscious of. So you can see how abstract I'm just treating everything like.
I mean, right now, you're painting like this orange chair and overall this kind of very green environment. Mm-hmm. At this point, are you thinking about color harmonies and stuff? Like, are you thinking about the theories of all the different kind of color harmonies, or what is kind of helping you to think about color in a situation can be overwhelming like this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm definitely not thinking about any sort of like a theory because, first of all, I often don't believe any of them. But in this particular case, we're observing from nature. And if what I'm looking at doesn't seem like the color combination that I like, I probably wouldn't pick that to paint. The reason why I picked it is because I found this beautiful. And then there's nothing for me to invent at this point. I think at this point I'm just trying to capture as sincerely, as honestly as possible, because nature should have the answer, at least in exercises.
Interesting. So let's get back to this. You made an interesting statement that you don't believe in color harmonies, like they don't exist.
No, they exist.
Yes, yeah, okay. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because I think there's a lot of people out there going like, whoa, Daisutsumi doesn't believe in color harmony. But that's not actually the
I
case,
believe in
right?
color harmony, but just one of those theories that you always like to...
Me? Oh, no. I'm just... I think what you're...
I get it.
Talking about it, I do think... It's something that can help you, like complementary colors versus primary colors versus, the way that colors relate to each other on a color wheel is not what you're actively pursuing right here. It's not what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important is, those harmonies do exist, but to paint and think about that constantly will limit you in terms of what I think you're capable of capturing them and observing. Like, I think when it's most helpful is when I'm trying to understand something sometimes. But I think in this case, I think a lot of people, I know I always wondered, when I was kind of learning more about color and paint, is what comes first? Like, do I look at the color and say, oh, that's the orange and the greens, oh, that'll work. But like you said, it seems like you're more observing, there's something beautiful about this. I'd really like to capture that. And in painting, you're almost investigating how that works.
That's exactly it. And I think that's like, especially when you're out there studying from observation, your job is not to bring in the theory or or your own opinion about color. It's really about learning and observing from what's in front of you, and hopefully you're painting because you found that beautiful, and by painting it you investigate, like you said, why it's working as a harmony. And if it's working in front, what's happening in front of you is working, but then by the time it comes out as a painting out of your hand, if it's not working, there's something happened in translation. It's not so much that you picked the wrong subject. It's actually something while you're painting changed. And in this case, I really wanted to capture what was working. Like you said, I wanted to know, like, why is this vivid orange chair that looks really beautiful in the middle of this kind of a lush, garden.
Mm-hmm. And I really love these kind of cool greens that you have in the background and everything. But if you really step back and look at it, it's almost like an abstract painting. You're really just kind of blocking in very big shapes. And what's great is the more you watch this painting, the more kind of these little details get resolved. Mm-hmm. You're really working from big to small. And it's true in terms of color as well. Like, it's not like anything big has changed about the statements you've made with color as well throughout this.
Yeah, I think that's the very interesting thing. I mean, we said color is subjective in our lecture. It's really true. Color can be interpreted any way. But what's great about studying from nature is oftentimes, because it's it's not just the local colors. It's how it's lit and how the air around it is influencing the color that you perceive in your eyes. That somehow it works. Oftentimes somehow it works, and you want to know how. You want to be able to control it. By the time you create your own painting out of your head, you want to be just as skillful as the nature, right? That's kind of like the goal of doing observational paintings, at least one of them. Mm-hmm.
It does feel like, too, it's starting to seem like overall there's a bit of a temperature relationship between light and shadow. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I really feel like, especially when you have so many different colors, when it comes to subtle color shifts all over the place. Because if I painted everything here with the same one green, it wouldn't have looked the same. It would have looked very different. First of all, it would have looked probably not as rich, But then if you squint, everything comes together. And that's because, I'm just dealing with very subtle shifts of greens. But I don't want to pick different greens like emerald green versus cerulean and, yellow green. I'm trying to always just compare, just like, a lecture, it's all relative. So I'm just really trying to figure out the temperature differences. Is this color warmer? Is this color cooler? And I'm constantly comparing it within this painting.
Which is, all throughout this class so far, we've really talked about that. Whether it's value or temperature or even hue, saturation, all of these things are about contextually how they relate to each other within the image you're painting. Mm-hmm. And I think, that's something that is something to pay attention to, I think, overall, as you continue to work on these paintings.
Yeah, because I feel like constantly that's most of the battle. Like when you're creating an image, you have to make sure it works in the context of the picture you're painting. And it's not about capturing what it is that's, as long as the relationship you capture, you should be able to capture the feeling, right?
Mm-hmm. And did you see this there? You're starting to draw in.
Oh, yeah. There was this Japanese-American guy who was... No, it wasn't Robert. I know it looks like it, but yeah, it is now, I did the observational painting. I thought it'd be kind of fun to add this just as an exercise, just add this character Pig from the Dam Keeper in this scene. See how we can kind of make it work. I just kind of did a quick drawing, and in the earlier class, we showed the use of adjustment layers. This is kind of showing how that technique can help you. So I'm just doing the local colors of Pig right now. So it looks like really flat, right? And I'm just focusing on the drawing. Like he is sitting on a chair And now I added this shadow layer. And you still have to rely on your eyes in terms of how dark and what kind of temperature you want. In this case, because of the neutral color of the light, I know the shadow will be warmer, so I kind of brought the saturation up, and then I brought the, of course, brightness down. So that's my shadow, and you can kind of see how I'm creating the shadow layer. And you start to feel like he's finally sitting in the scene. And now I'm adding just a slight cooler color that's kind of descending from the sky. That's a neutral color because he's warm. Local color is warm. And now I'm adding shadow onto the chair as well, just to make sure he's sitting in this environment. This adjustment layer method really forces you, or even allows you, to really think about light. And it's not so much that we want you to paint like this, in this kind of formulaic thing. It's really not about that. It's really, giving you the opportunity to think about light one by one. If you understand all that, you can just paint everything directly. That's not a problem. We do that all the time too. But in this case, I just did a drawing and local color, and then the shadow, and then the slight fill light from the top. That's it. And of course, cast shadow on the chair. And then you have this scene where Pig is actually sitting in this environment.